It's coffee time, 'cause it's Monday, and the weekend is over. Sad face. It's okay. I like my days. I like all my days. I do want one more weekend day. I want 4 and 3. I think that would work. Eat the food you have. 3, 2, 1. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Today is Monday. It is May 10th, 2021. My name is Jeremy, and this is my first cup of coffee. Oh, that came out great. Good coffee. I bought a different kind of coffee at the store yesterday. What was it? It was a Newman's Organic blend. That's not what this is, but I'll have some of that once I'm done with this. I've looked into having our own coffee 3 or 4 times, and what I keep coming back to is how darn expensive it would have to be, even to break, just to break even. We'd either have to have a bunch on hand, which I just don't think is going to work because coffee's got to be fresh, and I don't think enough of you would buy coffee. If you would buy coffee, let me know. And I mean, don't just say, yeah, I'd buy it, but really, like, you would commit to it and you would spend like 15, 16 bucks a pound minimum on coffee. The other way to do it is to drop ship it. And I looked at that, and by the time we were all done with that, that was over 20 bucks a pound. I can't do that. Who's going to pay 20 bucks a pound for coffee that, let's face it, is probably not as good as what you can get at, a really good blend at the grocery store or a specialty food store that's nearby. Just because it says first cup on the label. Ooh, we could make stickers that say first cup coffee, and you could put them on your coffee. And we could all pretend. That seems like a better idea. Well, I hope you had a good weekend. Friday was pretty solid, had some productive work, mostly on the creative side, got all that done. Saturday, helped family with some stuff. Moving somebody into assisted living and cleaning out their apartment and all that. It's interesting to go through people's stuff when they're not there. And I don't mean go through like I'm rifling through like I'm a spy or I'm stealing. But, you go through some of these things and you can't help but observe. You can't help but draw correlations. Noticing what is it about these people that they... I don't know. There are things I could say in a teasing way, but publicly that seems like it might be a little disrespectful, so I won't. You learn a lot about people when you help them move. And I think that's kind of neat. And then yesterday was a productive day. I built a new garden bed outside. It is probably one of the most hacked together garden beds I've ever done. It likely is the most. Because lumber is really expensive, so I used what I had. I used scrap that I had on hand. I cut as little as possible. And it's okay. It's functional. And that's really all that matters. When lumber prices calm down, I'll replace the wood. What else did I do? Did a bunch of meal prep. Made Thai peanut sauce and a ginger garlic lime sauce. And I made sushi for dinner. I went to the gym. I thought I was going to do it. I watched almost all 3 extended edition Lord of the Rings movies. But Return of the King is 4.5 hours long, so I couldn't quite get there. I think I'm halfway. They're such good movies. They really are. Which one is your favorite? I'm assuming most people have seen them. Mine is Two Towers. Two Towers is my favorite. Because of the Ents, and there's some great moments in there. Gandalf coming over the hill with the what are they, the riders? Rohaim? Sounds very Hebrew. But great movies. Did I do anything else? Went to the grocery store. Tried to sleep in, but, cat. So I went to bed like 9 last night, maybe a little bit before, quarter of it, 9. The only way I get any sleep is if I go to bed early, because she wakes me up. As soon as I move, or the light comes on the alarm clock, she's right there. Regardless, I hope you had a good weekend. So we got a new episode out today with, what's her title? Kyosanum Melanie Gibson. Had a wonderful conversation with her. Another author, somebody who popped up with a great martial arts book, and she sent me a copy. I full disclosure, I've not read it. Will I? Someday. But we had a great conversation, and she's a good person. She's someone that I'm glad came on the show, someone who is pretty deeply rooted in her martial arts, but it's not all she does. And I like to see that. I like to see that people leverage martial arts to benefit their lives. I think that's important. Coffee. What else? What's going on today? Today's Monday, so it's meeting day. Lots of meetings. Meetings. And then I'll finish up with the meetings. And who knows? Stacy says, morning, round 1 of my praying mantises hatched. Oh, cool. Visited with Laura. Awesome. Helped at a vaccine clinic. Was a good weekend. That sounds like a pretty awesome weekend. I do believe I saw something on social media that Stacy was getting praying mantises. I've seen people do this before. They're so neat. They really are crazy insects. I mean, they're so, between their size and their complexity, they don't seem like insects. Obviously they are. But they seem like they should be a small mammal. As interesting as they are. How often are we really interested in bugs? I'm not that interested in bugs. Butterflies are kind of neat. Ladybugs are kind of neat. Bumblebees are kind of neat. But there's not that much to say. Praying mantises, there's a lot to say. You can talk a lot about their eating habits. And as I expected, Stacy says, they're going into the gardens to eat buggies. Yeah. Between ladybugs and praying mantises. Great things to put in the garden. Trying to think, would that be the right Latin? I don't feel like doing declensions right now. The best example of that. If you don't know, like, most of our language comes from Latin in some way or another. And so when people talk about having more than one virus, we say it as viruses, but in Latin it would be viri. And actually, if you want to be really technical in Latin, the V is a W. It would be viri. Virii. And so I had a Latin teacher for 3 years in high school who used to beat that stuff into our heads. So it's hard to look at a word that seems like it's a Latin derivative and not wonder if the declension is correct. 5 declensions? 7? Ooh, some of those are rattling around in there. Nobody wants to hear me go through that. Plants, much of what's going on over there is doing better. Replanted some seeds. The peanuts are not doing well. They're really struggling. I've got 2. One is doing well, one is barely around, and the others are just, I've replanted peanuts. So this grand peanut experiment is not doing well. It's either the seed or the way I'm growing them. I mean, it's really the only 2 options. But given that I've been growing them the same, I've tried several different ways with batches. I'm suspecting the seed, which is really a bummer because it wasn't cheap. I had to order from a certain place, so I may have to get a different one next time. Go for somewhere else. But maybe the one that grows will be enough to provide me seed for next year. And we can do that. Because I want to grow peanuts. The melons, zucchini, the peppers, those are all doing really well. Eggplants are just starting to come up. I think I saw one little tomato had come up. What else is over there? Pumpkins. And beans. I'm going to spread the new garden bed. So this is the last thing I'll say about gardening, because I'm sure not everyone cares about gardening. Dry beans, dry pinto beans were on sale at the store. 50 cents a pound, so I bought 4 pounds. And I'm just going to throw those in that new garden bed. Will they grow well? Probably not. That's okay. I don't want them to. I'm planting plenty of other things in there, but it'll add some nutrient value, and the ones that actually grow will provide organic matter, because it's a rough garden bed. It's pretty much compost and sticks and leaves. It's got to break down. Take a few years for it to be worthwhile. Well, let's see what you gave me to talk about. If you want to give me stuff to talk about, you can leave it in the comment section below after the episode. Or if you listen to the show and you don't have a comment section below, you can email me, jeremy@whistlekick.com. Kat, do you have a comment? What? The floor is yours. Oh, I see. She was bugging me for more food, even though she had food and I wasn't having it. I will feed you when the show's over. I'll check, okay? You're going to have to wait. So today, we've got a few things here from Frank. So shout out as always, thank you to Frank. May is Get Caught Reading Month. So one thing to mention, I love books. I don't always love reading. A couple reasons. One, it's hard for me to slow down. It's hard for me to sit still. And if I'm going to sit still, this is where playing a video game or watching TV or a movie comes in, because it kind of shuts my brain off. Reading a book, my mind wanders. It still wanders. It's got to be a really, really compelling book for my mind to not wander. And even then, I'm still going to have to go, oh, I have to read that page again, because I wasn't paying attention. The other problem is that school kind of killed my love of reading. Hey, read this book, but instead of reading it and enjoying it, trying to understand it at a macro level, read it and try to figure out all the tiny little details that we're going to quiz you on it later in class. You want to ruin a book for a kid who loves to read? Do that to them. Totally changes the way you read. Oh, I bet they're going to ask about this, and you're taking notes, or you're like, oh, I don't understand that word. I'm busy. So I find it ironic that I like to write. Although I have the same struggles when I write. Not the quiz one, because I'm not quizzing myself on my book. But I do have notes as I write things. You know, here's a plot point that I need to make sure I don't ruin, or that doesn't become inconsistent with other things, or the fact that, some days I get a little bit of writing done, some days I get a lot. In fact, I've got to switch back to working on the next book. Not the next novel, but the health book that we're working on. I'll feed you later. I will feed you soon. You can come sit. So May is Get Caught Reading Month. Of all the books on your Audible account, which is your favorite? I don't know that I have a favorite. I'm trying to think of the ones that I've listened to multiple times. My favorite audiobook is actually not... Actually, it is on there. I have 2 audiobooks that I really, really enjoy, but they're really intense, so I don't listen to them often. The first one, actually, they're both from Stephen King, and I'm not a Stephen King fan. The first one is The Stand, which is an absolutely amazing, amazing book about as solid a good and evil story as you get. But a really, really good book, and I really enjoy it, and it's read well. And then the second is the Dark Tower series from Stephen King, which I think is now 8 books, because there was one that kind of went back in the middle and apart. And I love those. Have I read this? I've not read either. I've not read, in paper form, but I've listened to it. And the reader in the first 3 is phenomenal. I think I've said this on the show. You need to wait. But they're awesome. They're awesome. And if you see that when I tell people that, they say, I don't like horror, I don't like scary, I don't like gory. I threw a kitchen towel at her feet. Now she's smelling it. Neither one is really scary. I don't do horror, I don't do scary books. I'm not someone who's going to read It or Cujo or Pet Sematary or any of his other classic scary things. Zero interest for that. But his writing style, his word choice, I find really, really interesting. And in fact, you may note some hints of that in my writing. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's a little arrogant to say that you would. The other books, if you were to look at the ones that I'm checking out a lot, there's a writer narrator combo on Audible that I really enjoy. The writer is Tom Abrams, and he writes a lot of post-apocalyptic stuff. And the last one that I checked out was it was 3 books. It was The Spaceman Chronicles, which was not at all what I expected it to be based on the title or even the description. Very, very good. And the narrator, Kevin Pierce, does just a great job. Would love to have him read one of my books someday. That'd be cool. We should have the raw audio for Faith done, or the cleaned up audio. Today's the 10th. Hopefully in a week. We will see. We will see. As a philosophy major, you probably read some classic stories or texts. Are the classics still worth reading? I think reading philosophy without discussing it is kind of silly. It's kind of wasted. I think that the entire purpose of philosophical text is to make you think. And I feel that unless you're going to carry that forward into a discussion with someone who also finds that interesting, that there are probably other things you would enjoy reading more. Now, there are some super duper classics that everyone should probably read. My favorite philosophy books were was it The Complete Works of Plato, written by Socrates, or was it the other way? It's been a very long time. Not something I'm going to read again, but they were good. And I would say that a lot of the philosophy that I read in college really did guide, contribute to my view of the world. Really did. But there's a lot out there, when people talk about Kafka or, I didn't feel like reading Descartes was necessary. When someone puts forth an idea, if it's a new idea or a relatively new idea, that person is often spending a lot of their time justifying the existence of the idea and describing it. That person is rarely the best person to carry that idea forward. kind of like in a business. Starting a business and running a business are two very different things. I am good at starting a business. I am not very good at running a business. I would love to find someone that I could hand it off to. I would, in my ideal world, I would do like the first 3 to 6 months of a business, the idea and the core like implementation, and then hand it off to somebody else who would say, okay, I will find a way to, I will help this thing make money now. I will do all the repetitive, boring details that need to happen. That's not me. I'm a creator when it comes to business. And just like that, there are people who are better at explaining things. A lot of very, very smart people are really challenged when it comes to breaking an idea down and making it simple. We have this challenge in martial arts. A lot of high-end, high-ranking instructors are not good at teaching things for the first time. They may be able to explain a very difficult concept to high-ranking black belts and help them understand nuance, but they struggle to strip all that away and teach the core aspect to somebody who knows much less. And you could argue, well, unless you understand at a level that you could break it down, you don't really understand it. Well, yes and no. I think we have different vocabularies for different things and for different people. Yeah. But that all is to say, there is value in the classics, but it may not be the best way to read them and understand that information. When I think back on my philosophy classes in college, it wasn't the reading that I enjoyed, it was the discussion. When we were talking about utilitarianism or hedonism, or there were others along those lines. Those are the two that stick out. It wasn't the writing that got me going. It was the fact that, hey, I better read this because I want to be able to participate in this discussion. This is fun stuff when it came to class. It was funny. Most of my philosophy classes, if there was discussion, I'm thinking of a couple of them, the philosophy department had a house, and some of my philosophy classes were in that house, my higher level ones. It was usually the teacher and I are debating, the professor, and everybody else just kind of sitting around because they didn't enjoy that the way I did. Some of them got better grades than I did. It's fine. But I feel I pulled a lot away. A lot of who I am came from those conversations. And if anybody's ever sat down and had a good discussion with me, you know that I love to attack a topic and really explore it. It's something that, honestly, I've found most people don't like to do, and that's really a bummer. Most people don't want to have a good, deep conversation. That's okay. And the last bit for the day, oh, this is a great one. Let's ask for book recommendations from the live chat. So if you are watching live or you're watching later, let's do this. I would like to ask for 2 book recommendations from each of you. The first one, a martial arts book. It doesn't have to be your favorite, but it could be something that you find interesting or something that maybe everyone hasn't read. And I'll read them all tomorrow. The second one would be a non-martial arts book, something that you've enjoyed. Now, the 2 books I've mentioned on this show the most are probably Zen in the Martial Arts as a martial arts book, and then Way of the Peaceful Warrior as a non-martial arts book. The first one from Joe Hyams, the second one from Dan Millman. Great books, changed my life, formed my life. But if I was to give you other books, what other books have been impactful for me? Trying to think what's back there. I mean, maybe I should plug the Martial Artist Handbook. If you haven't read that, maybe you should check that out. What's the one I'm reading now? 48 Laws of Power. Reading, aka listening to on Audible. That one's been interesting. I don't consume information as books often. I just don't. It's not my format anymore. Podcasts are my format. Probably why we have, if you consider a podcast, it's why we have two of them. But I would love to see book recommendations. And if you are so kind as to comment on them, to leave some book suggestions, leave a couple sentences why. Who would get the most out of this book? Or why is this book special to you? Or whatever it is. And we'll drop them in there tomorrow. Way back in the early stages of martial arts radio, we had a question for our guests. Are there martial arts books that were impactful for you? It was kind of the original format of the show. And the ones that came up time and again were the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, Zen and the Martial Arts. Those were the two. And I think we even have like a top 10 list somewhere on the blog at whistlekick.com if you want to look in. I think we took like the first 100 and something episodes and tabulated all that information. We did the same thing for movies and TV shows too. Were there any others on that list? None that I can remember. I mean, there were. There was a top 10 that definitely were, but I don't remember them. So, there we are. There we are for Monday. I'm going to go get some work done. I'm going to have some meetings. And I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope to see you back here tomorrow. I hope to see your book recommendations for tomorrow. I'm going to read them. And I hope beyond that, you will leave me some questions, comments, feedback, whatever, so we can talk about that stuff too. Because the show's better when you contribute. Go check out Melanie Gibson's episode. I think some of you are really going to like this story. She's a great storyteller, and she wrote a book. We can plug her book. Go check out that book. If you're new, subscribe, notifications. Show up tomorrow, 6:30 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Support us with Patreon, or leave a tip at whistlekickmartialartsradio.com, or buy something at whistlekick.com with the code Frisco15. Okay, I'm going to go. You take care, everybody. I will see you tomorrow.